as this article out of CNBC says, higher minimum wage means restaurants raise prices and fewer employee hours, survey finds. You think this is kind of something that we have been reporting on for years, and it's basic economics. You want to see why things cost so much money, why prices are so high? It's because of the price of living inflating. It's because of inflation. It's because if you look at 1980 shadow stats and look at the true value or the true rate of inflation at the central banking level, it is over 11%. 11%. So everything's rising in price dramatically because of the printing of currency out of thin air. And I will go into that in a moment. But let's get into this article anyway and see what it says. It says, let's see, as it goes into, for restaurants, minimum wage hikes usually mean higher menu prices and fewer employee hours, according to a survey released Wednesday. And as it continues, Harri, a workplace management software company that works with restaurants, surveyed 173 restaurants between February 28th and March 15th about the impact of raising the minimum wage. The respondents represent more than 4,000 restaurants locations ranging from fine dining to fast food. Fast food workers across the country have been driving the fight for a higher minimum wage to keep up the cost of living. States across the U.S. have been raising their minimum wages. 6 states, including Illinois and Maryland, have approved laws phasing in a $15 an hour minimum wage. Washington, D.C. currently has a highest minimum, $13.25, and that is set to rise to $14 an hour on July 1st and to $15 on July 1st, 2020. However, the federal minimum wage has remained stagnant since 2009. House Democrats have been pushing a bill to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour from $7.25, but it's unlikely to pass. Proponents of increasing the minimum wage argue that it can stimulate the economy, reduce income inequality, and decrease taxpayer spending on government assistance programs. Opponents like National Restaurant Association say that it eliminates jobs and hurts small businesses, but not all restaurants oppose these efforts. Notably, McDonald's, I'm going to get into this in a second, McDonald's told the NRA last month, NRA is the National Restaurant Association, told the NRA last month that it would no longer join in its lobbying efforts against minimum wage hikes. Of course, it's a little bit of virtue signaling. The restaurant industry employs a large portion of minimum wage workers. It's no surprise that 83% of survey respondents affected by minimum wage hikes reported that their labor costs rose at least 3%. At least. 23% responded to minimum wage hikes by not making any changes to their business. But the majority did. The most popular response from 71% of operators was to raise menu prices. Nearly half reworked their food and beverage options to reduce costs. Some operators responded to the minimum wage increases by cutting costs, with 64% saying they reduced employee hours and 43% saying they eliminated jobs. Outside the restaurant industry, companies like Bank of America and Target have been hiking internal minimum wages to attract and retain employees in a tight labor market. Similarly, 87% of survey respondents affected by minimum wage hikes said they increased wages for workers who made more than the minimum wage. And I should also mention the banks print money out of thin air. So, and I mean, they're also laying off a bunch of people, so there's that too. But, I mean, does anyone not realize that when you raise minimum wages, what happens is the price of everything goes up? I mean, if you have to spend more money on labor, you have to raise the prices on the product which you're producing, which also costs a lot of money. People don't seem to realize that you'll still, like, despite the number on your money going up, the purchasing power will remain the same, if not get worse. And over the last century especially, as inflation skyrockets over time, you see a loaf of bread go up in price. You see everything go up in price. And you think that the way to solve this problem is more centralization. The way to solve this problem is more printing of currency, of more regulations. Look at McDonald's, for example. They can afford to raise their minimum wage. They can automate. They can put in like the machines to flip burgers and to take your order and all that, because they're not the most useful job. As bad as that sounds, it's the truth. It's not the most useful job. But of course, Walmart likes this. Of course, McDonald's likes this. Of course, all these major businesses like it because it helps them monopolize, duopolize, triopolize against the small business competition. Why do you think you go into a McDonald's and you get a burger for $2, then you go into a family restaurant and you get a burger for $8 to $14? Why do you think that is? Because their costs are going to be higher to compete against all these companies. They have to do a better job, first of all, than crappy McDonald's. But on top of that, they are in a much more tighter position paying their employees and producing and competing on the market, while McDonald's is a multinational conglomerate. And we see in places like Seattle what happens. They raise the minimum wage and the businesses move out of town. Of course they're going to do what's best for their bottom line, and why wouldn't they? It means more money for the employees. Look, when you free the markets, when you allow real, true competition to happen, that means getting rid of those taxes that are restricting the competition, which, by the way, the taxes prop up the major corporations that the government claims that they're trying to go after. They're the ones that are creating in the first place. When they raise the taxes and they raise the regulations, the big businesses can afford to deal with it. They just downsize a little bit and switch their technology up a little bit and move to different ways of producing. While the small businesses cannot compete against that. Think of all the businesses that are going under. There's so many businesses going under, and you go to so many cities around the United States and Canada where businesses are going under, and it's so sad to watch. And people are moving to different states where it's less restrictive. And if you want a higher wage that doesn't come from government, that comes from getting rid of the central banking system, extorting, destroying, indebting everyone and propping up the price of living. People don't seem to realize that the price of living is increasing all the time. And it just gets to the point where if you have a true free market competitive system, businesses are forced to compete on the market. They have to produce the best product for the best price. They do anything stupid, they go under, unlike McDonald's and Walmart and all those, which are so propped up that they are almost too big to fail. But small businesses, they're all competing against each other. Some get bigger than others because they have a good product. That means they can produce more. That means they can employ more. That means they can pay their employees more for a better work, better job. They can automate because automation actually creates more jobs long-term statistically. So that's another thing that people don't understand. But to a certain level, because when you only have big corporations being able to afford that technology, then obviously you've got a bit of a slippery slope there where the big corporations win, the small corporations or businesses are pushed under the bus. But you produce more, you get more competitive, you do something stupid, people move to a different company. It's simple, it's basic economics. And this need by people who don't understand, they think emotionally rather than logically, to constantly prop up this system to best support them, they're creating the problem in the first place and then using the problem as a solution, which is so paradoxical. It's so Hegelian. It's a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat for eternity, and it never ever ends. So when we are seeing all these businesses go under, what does that also do at the same time? It benefits the government. Government doesn't do anything they don't personally benefit from. So when you have all these people going on welfare, when you have all these people getting laid off, when you have all these businesses going under, propped up major corporations, which then depend on the government, which allow them to become kind of government monopolies, pushing all these other businesses out, less competition, less individual demand, less freedom, less people deciding on their own on what they want, because the free market is the antithesis to the government. And so that restricts the government. Government does not want capitalism. Government does not want free markets. Government does not want free competition. Government wants control. So when all these people are losing their jobs, that means they are dependent. They are in debt. They are begging for help. They are scared. They are worried that they cannot provide for their family, provide food on the table, their unhealthy food that they can afford only because the only food that they're able to afford is the unhealthy food made by the major corporations that have been propped up by this monopolization, regulation, taxation, legislation. So what happens then? If you're shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude. Everyone's eating unhealthy at the same time, so then they're unhealthy, they die younger, they need more medical care and that kind of stuff, and it just props up this system. It perpetuates a system. It creates a problem, and then they come in as a savior to save the day by creating more problems. This will never end as long as we perpetuate this and think that we can solve cancer or cure cancer with cancer or put out fire with kerosene. This is a never-ending problem. The only way to abolish this problem is to abolish the central banking system, to abolish the use of force against free individuals, and instead look towards a voluntary free market private contract system of governance where no one is enforcing their will on other people, where people are free to make their own decisions in life. They're responsible, and responsibility being the basis of freedom itself, where they can make their own decisions, chip money towards things. Their buying power would be greater because they won't be getting extorted, and the price of living wouldn't be inflating dramatically. There'd be competitive currencies. People can decide which currencies to use. There'd be a model of the most popular currencies which most places would accept, just like most places will accept Visa and MasterCard and many American Express, etc., now PayPal and Apple. I mean, businesses will decide what's best for them, and the consumer will as well, and that will lead to a more prosperous world where people have it their way more. People have more money in their pockets. People have more purchasing power. There's more individual demand. There's cheaper products, better products, more competition, more productivity, more markets opening up, allowing new ideas to come out, like the internet or the blockchain, new things that we haven't even heard of yet, new markets opening up, and bringing in a lot of prosperity for the individual, and creating new technologies under convenience, because the government uses convenience to install tyranny on the populace and free things, and then we need to do the same thing in retaliation, really. I mean, it's an evolution, not revolution. What can we evolve in? What can we create? What can we compete against the inefficient government with? Because the government is very incompetent and inefficient, and they're only a shadow on the wall, which we give respect to by believing in them like a bunch of cheerleaders, glassy-eyed in the religion of statism and collectivism. We must break the incremental frog boil towards complete collectivism, and we must innovate. We must use convenience for our own good rather than fall for the convenience of the state under the guise of convenience, as we fall into the trap of being used as pawns to sacrifice for the king and the queen. We will prevail. We will survive, but it comes down to you as an individual, and not believing in the use of force against free individuals, believing that 51% can control the 49%, and with that, of the 51%, only having about 0.01% of those people representing that system, and therefore no real free will, collectivism, you saying your ideas are so good they should be enforced on other people, and at the same time destroying the market, propping up the system, and creating a massive worldwide complex of destruction, dependency, and debt. We need to break free from that. We need to end the Fed. We need to end this coercive thing that we call statism and collectivism. And we need to talk for ourselves. We need to be responsible and independent, self-sustainable, free human beings. We need to protect our purchasing power. We need to create. We need to be creative. We need to stop looking for other people to help us from things that they created in the first place. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.